Alpha King banished his pregnant mate and left her to die, until the moon goddess made him pay. Shadows clung to the twisted trunks of ancient trees, and a silver mist rolled through the undergrowth like a living thing. The air smelled of damp earth and something faintly metallic, as though the soil itself had witnessed countless tragedies. It was here in the heart of this haunted place that Lyra stumbled, her legs trembling beneath her hands clutching her swollen belly. She had known fear before, but this was a terror unlike any other. The night was alive with unseen eyes, and every rustle of leaves, every whisper of wind seemed to carry the echo of betrayal. Only a few hours ago, she had been in the warmth of the Alpha King's palace, in the heart of a life she had once believed would be filled with love. But now she was alone, abandoned, and pregnant. Ryland, the Alpha King, had cast her out. His voice had been cold, unyielding like steel. The prophecy threatens everything I am. You and the child you are a danger. Leave and never return. Those words had struck her harder than any blow could. His eyes, once filled with warmth and pride, had been distant, filled with fear and perhaps something darker. He had left her to the mercy of the forest, where no law or kindness could follow. He had left her to die. Lyra's heart ached in more than one way. Fear battled with sorrow, sorrow battled with rage, and beneath it all a small, flickering hope refused to die. She pressed on, guided by instinct, and eventually the thick trees opened into a glade bathed in pale silver light. Moonlight fell like gentle rain, spilling across the moss-covered stones and reflecting in a pool of water that shimmered like glass. The glade felt sacred, untouched by the cruelty of men. Lyra sank to her knees beside the pool, letting her hands rest against her belly. The child within moved, tiny but strong, as if already aware of the dangers surrounding them. She whispered softly, words meant more for herself than the unborn life. "We will survive. Somehow we will survive." And then she heard it, a voice soft as the wind but filled with a power that made her chest tighten. "Lyra!" She spun, eyes wide, and saw a figure stepping from the shadows. Silver light wrapped around it, bending and shifting, forming the shape of a woman. Her hair glimmered like strands of moonlight, her eyes held the depth of 1,000 nights, and her presence was both terrifying and comforting. "I am Selene," the voice said, echoing like a melody in Lyra's mind. "The moon goddess has watched you. You are not abandoned, child of destiny. The king has acted in fear, and fear is always punished." Lyra blinked, unable to speak. Her lips trembled. Why are you here? I am nothing now. He has left me to die." Selene knelt beside her, silver light spilling across Lyra's face. "You are everything. You carry the seed of hope and change. The child you bear may bring salvation or ruin, but fear should not guide you. Power is born not only of strength but of endurance, of choice. And you, Lyra, have the strength to endure." Tears blurred Lyra's vision, part grief and part wonder. I don't know if I can survive the forest. I don't know if I can survive him." "You will," Selene said, placing a luminous hand on Lyra's shoulder. "I will teach you, but first you must trust the power within yourself. You are more than the king's fear and betrayal. You are more than this exile. You are the mother of destiny." That night, as the forest whispered secrets around them, Lyra closed her eyes and felt a strange warmth spread through her body. It was faint at first, like the pulse of her own heartbeat, and then stronger, like a river of light flowing through her veins. Selene's presence was a beacon, guiding her, teaching her to listen to the rhythm of the forest, to hear the language of shadows, and to feel the pulse of the moon above. Days passed, though Lyra could not tell how many. She found shelter in the hollow of a giant tree, where moss formed a soft bed and the walls smelled of ancient life. She learned to forage for roots, berries, and spring water, always careful to avoid the dangers lurking in the shadows, wolves, serpents, and spirits who resented the living trespassing in their realm. Each night, Selene appeared, teaching her more. How to bend the faint light around her into illusions, to move through shadow without fear, to hear the whispers of creatures who lived unseen. Lyra's fear began to transform into something fierce. She still mourned the love she had lost, the trust shattered by Ryland's betrayal, but now anger fueled her steps as much as sorrow. She would survive. She must. Yet despite her growing power, Lyra's heart was not free of longing. She remembered Ryland, the moments when his hands had been gentle, when his gaze had held her as if she were the only being in the world. That memory was a wound and a comfort, twisting in her chest, reminding her that love and pain were often intertwined. One evening the forest grew unnaturally silent. The mist thickened, and Lyra felt a strange tension in the air, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Selene appeared, her face grave, her eyes reflecting the pale light of the moon. "The king is restless," Selene said. "His pride has been wounded and he senses the consequences of his own actions, but he does not yet understand the depths of his error. He will come seeking you, whether he knows it or not." Lyra's heart stuttered. Fear mingled with something she could not name, hope perhaps, or the old thread of love still tethered to her heart. "If he comes, what will I do?" "You will not be helpless," Selene replied. "You are no longer the woman who trembled in his shadow. The child you carry is a spark of destiny, and you are the flame that can protect it. Remember, the moon watches, but it does not fight for you. You must decide what justice means." That night Lyra lay beneath the silver glow, listening to the rhythm of the forest, feeling the child move within her. A sense of purpose settled in her chest. She was not a victim. She was a mother, a woman betrayed, and soon she would become something far greater than even the king had imagined. And as she drifted into a troubled sleep, the forest stirred. Shadows shifted, and through the mist, a figure emerged, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that once held warmth now darkened by fear and uncertainty. Ryland had entered the cursed forest, seeking the mate he had cast aside. Lyra woke with a start, her pulse racing. The moonlight caught him as he stepped into the clearing, and for a brief moment she saw the man she had loved, the man who had betrayed her. "Lyra," he said, his voice low, strained. I did not know. I thought I was protecting. I thought I—" His words faltered. He did not reach her, not yet. And though part of her heart ached at the sight of him, another part, stronger, sharper, burned with the memory of betrayal, of nights spent alone, of the terror of the forest, and the lessons whispered by the moon goddess herself. Selene appeared behind Lyra, her silver hair drifting in the air like liquid light. Her eyes were calm but fierce. "The king has come, and he faces the choice he feared. Will he see truth, or will he bring his own destruction? The power of the moon does not forgive blindly." Lyra rose, her shadow stretching long across the glade. The air hummed around her, alive with the magic Selene had helped her awaken. She could feel it thrumming in her veins, fierce and cold and unyielding. She could protect her child. She could make Ryland understand the weight of what he had done. And as Ryland took a hesitant step closer, the forest seemed to lean in, holding its breath, waiting for the first move in a confrontation that would change their fates forever. Lyra's eyes met his, a storm of sorrow, anger, and lingering love swirling within them. She could see the man he had been, the man he feared becoming, and the man he might yet become if he survived the reckoning that the moon had decreed. "Do you even know what you've done?" she asked, her voice steady, though her hands shook slightly. Ryland swallowed, silence stretching between them, heavy as the night itself. I am sorry," he whispered, though words alone could not undo the cruelty of exile, the terror of the forest, the night she had spent fearing death for herself and her unborn child. Lyra clenched her fists, feeling the pulse of the child within, feeling the power Selene had awakened. This was not just a meeting of lovers, nor just a confrontation of a king and his mate. This was destiny awakening. This was justice beginning its slow, inevitable path. And somewhere above, the moon watched, full and bright, spilling silver light over the glade. Its quiet gaze promised that vengeance and redemption were intertwined, that the king would pay, not necessarily in blood, but in truth, in reckoning, and perhaps in love reborn or forever lost. The forest held its breath, waiting for the first move. And Lyra, the woman betrayed, the mother-to-be, the child of prophecy, was ready to act. The forest seemed alive in a way it never had before. Shadows stretched longer, twisted and curled with secret purpose. The wind whispered through the branches like voices from another world. Lyra moved carefully, her senses heightened, her hand resting over the child within her. The faint glow of moonlight which had guided her to the glade days ago now seemed to pulse in response to her heartbeat. She could feel it flowing through her, a power gentle yet fierce, a power that Selene, the moon goddess, had awakened in her. Lyra had changed since that first night in the glade. She was no longer the trembling woman abandoned by the king. Her body, strengthened by both magic and necessity, moved with cautious grace through the forest. Her mind, sharpened by fear and lessons in survival, anticipated every sound, every rustle. And her heart still carried a storm of emotions, sorrow for the betrayal, anger for the pain, but also a lingering, undeniable love for Rylan, the Alpha King who had cast her away. Selene appeared beside her as she paused near a fallen log. The goddess's silver hair shimmered like a river of moonlight and her eyes held a calm intensity. "You are ready," Selene said. "The forest recognizes you now. It will obey your command, but only if your will is true. Power comes from the heart, Lyra, not just from the moon." Lyra nodded, pressing a hand to her belly. "I will protect him," she said softly, her voice steady. "I will protect my child, and I will make him understand what he has done." Selene's gaze sharpened. "Understand or pay, there is a difference. You must decide which path you choose. True strength lies in knowing the heart of your own justice. The king will come, drawn to you by more than his ambition. The threads of fate bind him here. Whether he survives will depend on his courage to face the truth." For hours, Lyra practiced. The lessons Selene gave her were subtle but powerful. She learned to call shadows to her side, to bend light and dark into illusions that could confuse even the keenest eyes. She learned to sense the intentions of those who entered her space, to feel the tremor of fear or guilt before it appeared on their face. And she discovered that the child she carried was no ordinary child. The pulse within her seemed to respond to the magic, to the light of the moon, and even to her emotions. Days turned into nights, nights into a strange, suspended rhythm. Lyra's power grew quietly, but so did the tension within her heart. The thought of Rylan haunted her. She could not deny the lingering warmth of his past care, the moments when he had been gentle, when his laughter had filled their shared spaces. And yet those memories clashed violently with the memory of his betrayal, the cruel words, the coldness in his eyes, the moment he had cast her into the forest to face death. One evening, as the moon rose full and silver above the glade, a rustle of leaves made her freeze. She could feel it in her bones before she saw it, someone approaching. Not a predator, not a creature of the forest, but human, powerful, familiar, hesitant. Rylan stepped into the clearing, his eyes searching, his posture tense. He had come alone, though Lyra knew it was not merely curiosity that had drawn him. Pride, fear, guilt, and something more, something he did not yet fully understand, had brought him here. "Lyra," he said, his voice low and strained, carrying both desperation and uncertainty. I had to find you. Lyra raised her hand, her fingers tingling with the faint glow of the moon's magic. Shadows curled around her, protective and watchful. She did not lower her hand. "Do not speak yet," she said, her voice firm. "You have done enough damage with your words. I need to see your heart first." Rylan's eyes faltered, meeting hers. "I am sorry," he whispered, but the words felt hollow even to him. He could feel the weight of his actions pressing against him like a storm he could not escape. I thought I was protecting you, protecting our child. I did not know, I did not realize." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Protecting me, by leaving me to die, by leaving your own child in the forest's hands. That is not protection, Rylan, that is fear, that is cowardice." His shoulders slumped and he stepped closer, though cautiously, aware of the power thrumming around her. I feared the prophecy. I feared losing everything. I did not want to harm you. You did harm me," Lyra interrupted, her voice shaking with the force of suppressed emotion. "And do you know what it is to face every shadow, every predator, every whisper of death, alone? To be abandoned by the one who should protect you?" Ryland's jaw tightened, and for a moment silence stretched between them. He could see the truth in her eyes, the strength, the resilience, the magic that pulsed faintly around her. He realized then that the woman before him was no longer the one he had betrayed. She had grown, shaped by pain, by the forest, by the power of the moon itself. Selene stepped forward, her silver light spilling across the clearing. "The child within her is a spark of destiny," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "You will not command this moment, King, for it is no longer yours alone. You must face the consequences of fear and betrayal. Only if your heart is honest can redemption begin." Ryland swallowed hard. I will face it," he said, though the words trembled. "I will do whatever it takes to prove my heart. Tell me what I must do." Lyra studied him, her fingers still glowing faintly with magic. The anger within her warred with the remnants of love. She could strike him down, punish him, ensure he understood the cost of his choices. But somewhere in the deep recesses of her heart, a sliver of hope remained. Hope that the man he had been could still grow into the man he might become. "You cannot take a single step toward redemption without first understanding the pain you caused," she said. "You must see it, feel it, and endure it. Only then will your apology mean anything." Ryland nodded, swallowing hard. "Then show me. I will endure it. I will face every shadow I cast upon you." Lyra's magic flared, shadows coiling around him like living ribbons. Images appeared before his eyes, not illusions meant to harm, but visions of the forest, the terror, the loneliness, the nights Lyra had spent trembling and fighting for her life. He saw every moment of hunger and fear, every cold night under the trees, every whisper of death that had brushed against her. He staggered, tears forming in his eyes as the weight of truth pressed upon him. He had never realized the depth of what he had done, the cruelty masked by fear. Now he understood. Lyra's heart ached as she watched him struggle, yet she also felt the faint pulse of hope. This was his chance, not to erase the past, but to acknowledge it, to bear it, and to grow beyond it. "You see now," she said softly, her voice both firm and gentle. "This is the cost of fear, the cost of betrayal. You cannot undo it, but you can choose how you move forward." Ryland fell to his knees, humbled and broken, the power of the moon's magic pressing him to humility. "I understand," he whispered. "I understand everything. I will change, I swear it. I will protect you and I will honor the child. I will not fail again." Lyra watched him, feeling the weight of her own heart. She could feel her anger simmering, but she could also sense the sincerity in his voice, the raw truth of a man facing himself for the first time. Selene's voice broke the silence. "The path of redemption is not without trial. Your courage must now be tested, King. The child you fear to lose is tied to the fate of the forest, to the power that courses through it. Will you rise to protect, or will your fear undo you once more?" Ryland's eyes met Lyra's, and in that moment he saw not only the woman he had betrayed, but also the power she now wielded, the life she carried, and the destiny she represented. He nodded, determination replacing fear. "I will rise. Whatever is needed, I will do it. Not for forgiveness, not yet, but for her, and for our child." The forest seemed to breathe with them, shadows dancing lightly as if acknowledging the shift in fate. The moon, high and bright, cast a silver path through the clearing, illuminating the first step in a journey that would change all of them. Lyra felt the child move within her, a small, insistent pulse that seemed to echo the rhythm of the forest and the moon above. She smiled faintly, a mix of hope and wariness. The path ahead would not be easy, darkness and danger still lingered, but for the first time since the exile began, she felt that she might not walk it alone. And in the distance, the whisper of a coming storm reminded them both that destiny was rarely gentle. The moon watched, patient and eternal, knowing that justice and love were intertwined, and that the trials to come would demand courage, strength, and the willingness to face the heart's deepest shadows. The forest held them in quiet tension, waiting, as the first steps toward reckoning and redemption began. The moon rose high, full and brilliant, yet something unusual lay within its light. A shadow stretched across the sky, slowly swallowing the glow, the first sign of a lunar eclipse. The forest seemed to hold its breath, leaves still, shadows deepened, and even the distant river's babble softened to a whisper. Tonight, fate would demand its reckoning. Lyra stood at the heart of the glade, her belly round with the life she carried, her aura pulsing faintly silver in the moonlight. The child within her moved with a strange rhythm, almost as if it sensed the collision of magic and destiny that hovered in the air. She had grown stronger, more confident, and every lesson Selene had imparted had honed her resolve. The forest obeyed her now, every shadow and whisper bending to her will. But her heart was a storm, torn between anger and the old, lingering love she could not forget. Rylan approached cautiously, his steps careful on the mossy ground. He was changed, humbled, and yet still burdened by fear. He had faced visions of the forest's cruelty, of Lyra's terror, and he had endured them all, trembling, broken, and finally understanding the weight of his betrayal. Now he faced the ultimate test, to prove his courage and devotion without faltering. "Lyra," he said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air, "I am here. I do not expect forgiveness, not yet, but I will face whatever trial comes if it means protecting you and our child." Lyra's eyes, silver in the moonlight, studied him. She could feel the truth in his words, the sincerity that had taken root through the pain and the visions he had endured. But the moon goddess's test was not for words. It was for actions, for courage, for the heart's truth. Selene appeared beside Lyra, her presence radiant yet calm. "The eclipse begins," she said softly. "Shadows and light will merge. All that is hidden will be revealed. The king must prove his heart is not only afraid but willing to change. The child you carry, Lyra, carries destiny within. Protect it, guide it, and choose justice wisely." The first shadow of the eclipse fell upon the glade. The silver moonlight darkened and the forest shifted as if alive, twisting in response. Figures emerged from the shadows, phantoms of fear and anger, illusions shaped by Lyra's magic and the moon's power. Wolves with eyes like burning embers, trees that seemed to twist into clawing hands, and whispers of voices accusing Rylan filled the air. Rylan's breath caught. His knees threatened to give way, but he remembered the lessons he had learned. He had faced the vision of Lyra's suffering, and he had endured it. Now he must act, not for pride, not for forgiveness, but for truth. "I will face this," he said, stepping forward despite the shadows that clawed at his mind. Lyra watched him, her chest tight. She could feel the magic of the moon coursing through her, shaping the illusions, but she allowed him the choice. This was his trial. The phantoms advanced, testing him, whispering all the fears he had buried, showing him every failure he had committed. And Rylan did not falter. He saw the visions of Lyra's fear, of the cold nights she endured alone, of the moments when she believed him dead or lost. And instead of turning away, he faced them fully, tears streaming down his face as he whispered, "I see it all. I feel it all. I will not fail again. I swear it." The shadows recoiled, their whispers fading as the eclipse deepened. Lyra's hands glowed brighter, guiding the phantoms into retreat. Her trust, though cautious, began to bridge the gap between them. "Do you understand now?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. "Do you understand the cost of fear, the cost of betrayal?" Rylan fell to his knees again, bowing his head. "Yes, I understand it more than I ever could have before. I am yours to test, Lyra. Do with me what you must." The moon goddess appeared fully, her silver form bathing the glade in light even as the eclipse darkened the sky. "The king has endured," Selene said. "He has faced the shadow of his own heart. Now he must face one final truth. Can he protect the future, the child, and the woman he once forsook? Can he act from love and courage, not fear?" Suddenly, the ground trembled. The shadows that had once tested Rylan shifted into new forms, creatures born of the forest's ancient curse. Large and spectral, they moved like predators, their eyes glowing in the eclipse's dim light. They were the forest's judgment, its magic unbound, and they advanced toward Lyra, who was still learning to channel her power fully. Rylan leapt forward instinctively, standing between Lyra and the creatures. For the first time, the king acted not from fear, not from pride, but from genuine protection. He drew a blade, simple yet strong, and met the first spectral beast with courage that came from understanding the pain he had caused. Lyra felt her magic surge, intertwined with the moonlight and Rylan's resolve. She raised her hands, guiding the shadows and light, forming barriers of silver brilliance that held the creatures at bay. Together, their power, Rylan's courage and Lyra's magic, formed a bond stronger than either could wield alone. The battle was not just physical. It was emotional, spiritual, and deeply symbolic. Every strike, every deflection was a test of trust, of understanding, of redemption. Lyra realized something in that moment. She did not need to destroy Rylan to assert her power. She needed him to stand beside her, not because he was ordered to, but because he chose to. Finally, the last of the spectral beasts dissolved into mist, their forms dissipating into the silver shadow of the eclipse. The glade was silent again, the forest holding its breath, as if acknowledging the resolution. Rylan knelt beside Lyra, exhausted but alive. His eyes met hers, filled with humility, fear, love, and awe. I did not know I could feel so much," he whispered. I do not deserve you yet, but I want to learn, to change, to protect what matters most." Lyra's chest tightened, a mix of relief and lingering sorrow in her heart. She placed a hand gently over his, feeling the warmth of his genuine remorse and courage. "The path will not be easy," she said softly. "Trust is not given lightly, Rylan. And the world outside this forest will not wait for us to heal." He nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. "I will follow you," he said, voice steady. "Where you lead, I will follow, not as a king demanding loyalty, but as a man learning it for himself." The moon goddess smiled, radiant and eternal. "The test is complete," Selene said. "Destiny has been affirmed. The king has faced his heart, and the woman he betrayed has chosen courage and justice. Together they may yet shape the future, and the child within her will be the spark of change." Lyra felt the child move once more, stronger now, pulsing in rhythm with the forest and the magic around them. She smiled faintly, a mixture of hope and caution. The road ahead would still be difficult. There would be challenges, dangers, and trials. But for the first time, she did not feel completely alone. Rylan was no longer just the man who betrayed her. He was the man who had faced truth, who had begun to atone, and who now stood ready to protect the life and destiny they shared. The eclipse slowly passed, the moonlight returning to its full, gentle glow. Shadows receded and the forest seemed to exhale, the tension dissipating like a tide returning to the sea. Lyra and Rylan stood together, their hands intertwined, their hearts still cautious but united in purpose. Selene's voice, soft and melodic, lingered in the clearing. "Love and justice are intertwined. Redemption is not easy, but it is possible. What begins here tonight will echo across kingdoms and generations. Guard it well." Lyra nodded, feeling the weight and beauty of the moment. She looked at Rylan, and for the first time since the betrayal, she saw not just the man who had wronged her, but the man who could walk beside her, who could face darkness and fear, and who could grow stronger for the love they shared. And as the forest shimmered under the restored light of the full moon, Lyra felt a gentle stir within her, the child responding to the hope and strength that now filled her heart. A new chapter was beginning, not one defined by betrayal or fear, but by courage, redemption, and a love forged in shadows and silver light. The forest, the moon, and the destiny they carried all seemed to whisper the same promise. The future would be shaped not by fear, but by choice, courage, and the enduring power of love. And in that quiet, sacred glade, mother, child, and the man who had once betrayed her stood together, ready to face whatever the world might demand.